Welcome to the second day of Mipcom. I have the privilege of introducing one of the most accomplished and celebrated television executives in the business. As President and CEO of AMC Networks, our keynote speaker, Josh Sapan, has built the company into a global creative powerhouse. AMC Networks includes US cable networks AMC, BBC America, IFC, SundanceTV and WE TV, content producer and worldwide distributor, AMC Studios, streaming platforms that include AMC Premiere, Shudder, and Sundance Now, independent film label, IFC Films, and AMC Networks International, the company's global division with channels that span 140 countries. AMC Networks is responsible for some of the most celebrated TV shows of the past decade, including Mad Men, Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, The Terror, and Killing Eve that was presented here last April during Cannes Series. Joining Josh on stage is Colman Domingo, who portrays Victor Strand in AMC's critically acclaimed global hit drama, Fear the Walking Dead, which just completed its 4th season. In addition to being a wonderful actor, Colman is also an accomplished playwright, as well as a director, and most recently he directed an episode of Fear the Walking Dead, which aired just a few weeks ago. The conversation will be led by Anna Karugati, the group editorial director of WorldScreen.
Good morning, everyone. If you are even half excited as I am about being here this morning, you're very excited. This is going to be a great panel. This is the essence of talent from executive to creative. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. There's so much to talk about. Josh, over the years, looking over your bouquet of networks, you have several times seen how an innovative scripted show can re-energize a network. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure, it's a happy subject for us. We've had the good fortune of working with creative people and setting out to take advantage of changes in technology and the resource of creative people who have stories to tell. I guess it's fair to say that our current chapter began a decade ago with Mad Men, followed by Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, as the video said. And it brings us today to have a point of view that there are people with stories to tell who want to tell them badly. And Colman's also a writer, and we can ask him about the play, a play or plays that he's written and what he's doing for us in terms of development. But fast forward to this conference, I don't know if the people in the audience have had a chance to see the most recent John Le Carre piece, or read about it, or see reels of Little Drummer Girl, which is extraordinary, or State of the Union, which is done in 10-minute episodes and is absolutely extraordinary, or Lodge 49, which is executive produced by Paul Giamatti from a series of short stories by Jim Gavin. So my long answer to your short question is that technology invites different ways of telling stories, and if we can marry that with the best storytellers and curate them against a backdrop of many, many more options, the world will pay attention. We just saw it with Killing Eve.
Right.
And it works.
But there's also there needs to be a willingness to take risks.
There does. There needs to be a willingness absolutely to take risks. Actually, almost every show that we've done that's worked terrifically seemed like it well might not have worked terrifically.
And who would have thought zombies would have taken off the way they did, right?
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, I went to, when we looked at The Walking Dead, I went to, with my son, I went to a series of comic book stores in New York because I thought, this seems like a questionable idea, and spoke to all the people who love comic books and asked them about their favorite zombies and what made their favorite zombies, and it all worked out.
Right. Now, Colman, there used to be a time years ago where and let's just talk about your work as an actor now, we'll get to the rest later. If you acted in films, that's where you were. If you were in television, that's where you were, and there wasn't a whole lot of crossover.
Right.
But you always have. So how did that start for you, and how has it also started in the industry? What is the pull of television for a lot of actors, writers, directors?
Well, that's something. I think the bulk of my career was in the theater. Whether it was in San Francisco or New York. And I just wanted to tell great stories, wherever they were. And most of them for me were always in literature, you know? And so by the time I started to do more film. It just seemed like that my skill set, you know, because I'm a character actor in many ways, I can lean more into film work. And then television. Television was always something, I'll be very honest. Theater actors look down on film actors look down on television actors, right. You know, but at some point it's all started to blend and marry because of the incredible storytelling that was happening now on television. People weren't pandering and believing audiences were not, you know, adept at grappling with, you know, deep, you know, emotion and storytelling, and now they were. So now that's why you see a lot of actors suddenly gradually making their way through from film to television. And so I didn't really have much of a transition. It just made sense to me. I just wanted to be a part of great storytelling. So even by the time I got to being a part of Fear the Walking Dead, again, it was a genre that I didn't know was popular. But as I read the script, I saw that it was just about human behavior. It was about survival. It was about all these human issues that we were dealing with. And also, you can dream a little bigger. You can do things that you can't do in the theater, you know, with television as well. So I was so interested in jumping on board and getting in there and wrestling with these ideals. So it's been fun and great. And so I think that that's also the draw for more actors in television.
Can I tell you one fun anecdote? So we had Fear the Walking Dead on the air, and I was an admirer of Colman Domingo's work in Fear the Walking Dead because he really energizes the show terrifically. And I make a practice of going to off-Broadway plays, and I don't do a lot of research before I go to them. In New York, and I saw one called Dot that I had loved. It was a beautiful family story. I hope I'm characterizing it properly, about a matriarch, and the matriarch was suffering from Alzheimer's. It was a family story, and it was a beautiful, touching story. And I had not met Colman Domingo. I just knew that he was a great actor in Fear the Walking Dead. And then we were talking, and I think I'm not sure if I'm revising history, but it came up that he wrote Dot. Yeah. And so that was the first hyphen that went into his bio for me. He's on his way to the London Film Festival, where he'll have the closing movie from a James Baldwin story that has extraordinary pedigree and everyone attached to it. So that added a third hyphen, and he just has now been directing. So that added a fourth hyphen. So he's modest about all that he's accomplished. He's bringing it all together.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Josh, so AMC Studios has been established for a few years now. What is the strategy behind boosting its output?
Sure. So we began AMC Studios about a decade ago, and we actually began it happily with The Walking Dead. And we did foresee what everyone in the room knows is happening, which is that there was going to be a series of new entrants into the television world. And those new entrants in the television world would produce content for themselves as opposed to buy it externally, exclusively, and that there would be also a demand for all this content. And there would be reward in it. So we set up AMC Studios from scratch, and we began, I guess it's fair to say modestly, but fortunately with one TV show, and we now have every year dozens in production. And we make TV shows for all of the channels that you identified, and we sell the TV shows around the globe to our own channels and to other outlets. And so for our company, the principles were We had distribution in place in the US through channels. We expanded that distribution with AMC Networks International. Many people in this room work in that business, roughly 1,000 or so around the globe, outside of the US. And then we wanted content for those channels in the US and outside. And we've now set up streaming services as well for additional ways to reach them. So those are all the pragmatics of what we've done in the studios. If I may just say one thing that has guided us through all those pragmatics and a growth that has tripled the size of our company, which is that we have always believed that content is precious, that storytelling can't be compromised, that being big is fine if you want to be a facilitator and make things accessible. It's a virtuous thing to do, but we wanted to bring the finest and the best to everyone associated with their expectation. And that informs everything we do through distribution, through our studio, through streaming, and perhaps most importantly, through working with people who have the capability of doing it.
Right. What shows are you focused on right now?
So I mentioned Lodge 49. I brought along conveniently a clip of Lodge 49, and it's fun. It's a cool thing. There are a series of short stories by a guy named Jim Gavin, who is a great writer, and I read his short stories, and he writes, I don't know how many people in the room are American, but he writes, and will understand the idiom off the grid.
Right.
It's about a guy who is living on the edges of life. Mm-hmm. And it has a little bit of the sensibility of a movie that you may know called The Big Lebowski, mm-hmm. where there's a sort of off-the-grid character. And we brought along a clip, and it's executive produced by Paul Giamatti.
Wonderful.
And Dan Carey, who brought it to life with Jim Gavin. And so I don't know if we're able to show it.
Yes, let's take a look at the
Great.
Lodge 49 clip.
That's great. That's awesome.
So, Josh, because there are so many outlets out there, yours or AMC Networks and the others, there's a premium on talent. What's the strategy for building long-term relationships when you have somebody extremely talented that comes to work for you? How do you, how do you then extend that relationship?
Yeah, it's of course a great question. You know, I think that, I'll say two things if I may. I hope they're relevant to the people in the room. One is that Colman talked about the sort of what was considered the hierarchy mm-hmm. of what people thought about film and television and what was good and what was bad in theater, and that's flipped around. I think that television now is widely acknowledged to be a premier place to work yep. in which technology has really enabled great creative work to be done that's not formulaic or redundant. What we believe and attempt to do is to treat every show that's done as precious, and precious for the creator, precious for the writer, precious for the actors, and precious for the audience. So that drives, I think, our relationship to creators and hopefully to the audience. And in an era when, and it's not to malign it, there are very big companies today that we all know are getting bigger. And they are focused on facility and accessibility. They want to bring their good mousetrap to everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some material can get lost in that mousetrap. It can be well-intentioned and it can just be there. And at AMC Networks, we do have a belief that we will bring the work forward in a way that will give it its best showcase and its best illumination. And so Killing Eve is an interesting example. I think it's a show that we thought was beautiful. Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote it. Jodie Comer and Sandra Oh were magnificent in it. And I do think that we played it on our BBC America channel in the US, and I think it had the distinction of actually increasing ratings
right.
8 weeks in a row. It hadn't Absolutely. Been done in a decade. Linear ratings went up, 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 up. And so, long answer to your question, we curated it. And it worked, and it developed attention. And I hope that when we speak to creative people, they recognize that we're not just saying yes and saying goodbye. We're saying yes and saying hello to a process that's ongoing, that will treat it like it sits in the front window of the stores that we operate, not somewhere in a shelf that you can find if you want it.
Right.
It may be suggested to you, but is not in the front window. And the front window is very important.
Right.
It needs to be in the front window for a period of time for the world to find it.
I just have to say that I completely agree with everything Josh is saying. I'm a proud beneficiary of that, because I know that AMC is a company, when they say they're invested in their creatives, they truly are. So how else can I explain, being one of the stars of one of their shows, and also being able to direct on the show, as well as, out of all the networks, funny enough, I don't know if I told you this, I sort of went out to pitch my television series based on my play Dot, which is a small family drama about a matriarch with Alzheimer's and her adult children. And I went out to pitch to every other network. I really did. I went because I thought, AMC.
How could you do that?
Because I thought AMC is not going to want this. I don't want them to, just feel kind or just say, it's Colman, let's read this. I thought, let me take it out to the other networks first. And then before I went into AMC, I thought, they're not going to want this because they do Fear the Walking Dead, Mad Men. And then my agent says to me, what makes you think they wouldn't do it? They're interested in at the end of the day, they're all family stories. That in some way, they're blended families in some way. They're interested in good storytelling. And so that boosted my confidence. I went in there. But also, I understood that it was a partnership that they were interested in to continue to develop as well, and to really nurture me as a creative artist in all the things that I do. So that's why we're down this road now of developing the series as well for me as well, which I would executive produce and write.
Fabulous. All right. Well, let's go to Fear the Walking Dead first, and then we'll get to that one. How did Fear the Walking Dead come about?
Fear the Walking Dead gave irrepressible birth to itself from the world of The Walking Dead, because it began with a question, I think, of what happened, when, and what was it like before the zombie apocalypse, which is really a rich question that has not been answered. I mean, it's of course metaphorical-ish to today, because we deal with many things that feel like they could have profound negative global impact of biological, chemical, social, and political variety. And so we had told the story of what happens in adaptation, and we hadn't told the story of what happens before the fact, and we began in a different location with what happens before the fact, and then followed a parallel group of people who were living with those same dynamics. So I think we have a clip of it too.
Oh, good.
That's a pickle. Damn grackle. It's okay. Shell's made of fiberglass, pretty strong. Get her? Close. We got about a minute tops. Hey, see there? See, we can make it to the other side. I'll empty my pistol. I'll draw those other two over more. That should occupy any gate.
We're not gonna make it.
Oh, come on, Victor.
We have seconds here. You can't fight when you're dead, John. It didn't work.
But it could work.
Oh, yeah? You're gonna swim across fast enough? You can't even row a boat. And those two walkers won't occupy that thing for long. It didn't work. It was never gonna work. I only bought into your bullshit because I felt sorry for you, but I'm not gonna die for you. Fire your gun and let's swim back now.
Ooh.
High drama.
Colman, what appealed to you about Fear the Walking Dead? And Victor Strand has got to be one of the most remarkable characters on television. He is stylish.
Yes, he is.
And I'm just speaking as a viewer, he seems to use his mind as a weapon more than weapons.
That's
right?
exactly it.
Talk a little bit about that.
Man, when I first got the script for Fear the Walking Dead, I thought it was some of the most sophisticated writing that I've read. I thought it was such a complex character. I thought I'd never seen a character like Victor Strand on television. And I thought, wow, I think I have a lot of interesting thoughts about it. And then, Dave Erickson and his team thought so as well. And so then I began this journey. And I had no idea, to be very honest, that this journey would take me. We're going into our 5th season, but we've traveled from shooting in Vancouver and LA to Mexico for 2 seasons to Austin, Texas, that this show would keep evolving as the characters are evolving. I joke around to my fellow castmates and say, remember when I was in a Ralph Lauren suit? I thought that was actually going to be what I was in the entire time.
Right,
I thought I was just going to be witty and, sipping on a cocktail.
Right.
I had no idea that I'd be fighting an alligator and, looking terrible. But that's been a wonderful journey with the show, because the show is really hearkening on all of our fears, on this possibility that can all fall apart. So I thought it's such great and epic storytelling, I think, in every single time. And I was able to step behind the camera this season, and I'll do so next season as well. But we're creating, short films, actually. I think it has so much size. There's visual effects and stunts and special effects, but yet still it's just these beautiful human stories. At the end of the day, sort of the zombies are just in the way, and you're just trying to, like that scene right there is just about my character and John Dory trying to understand one another. We are polar opposites, and we're put together to teach each other some beautiful human lessons, and how do we survive and move forward. So at the end of the day, it's just those other things are in the way of this precious, smaller relationship.
Wow. So a lot of the stories that you have universal themes. Talk a little bit about AMC Networks International expansion.
Yes, sure. Well, I can't answer that subject without mentioning a few names. Eduardo Zaletta is in this room, I think somewhere in the dark, and he is expanding our footprint and running the international operation, and we're moving into Africa, and we're moving into the Middle East, and we are, and Paul Rehrig is here, and we just extended our streaming services, among them Shudder, into English-speaking countries around the globe, New Zealand and Australia. And our studio operation is growing and growing, and Rick Olshansky is here, and the irrepressible and amazing Kristen Jones, who finds in the world somehow the projects that are of great beauty. And I don't know where they come from, but they come home with us remarkably. And so our studio operation is in full swing, and Harold Ronenthal, I think, doesn't get off a plane. He just stays on a plane and finds us things of wonder that should have been found but are unfound until Harold shows up. So we are expanding our distribution, we're expanding our streaming, we're expanding our co-production, we're expanding our acquisition, and we're expanding our studio partnerships. And we do it through those people and all of their associates, and that's how we do it.
Right.
So we hopefully provide the resources within an economic realm that makes sense, and of course we rely on our people to make it happen. And our people, of course.
So,
no, I don't want to talk too much about him because I won't stop, because he's getting on a plane. Just to mention, I can't help but plug it, because, I'm sorry, it's good. It's not a commercial for AMC. It has nothing to do with us. It's distributed by a different company. But his film is closing the London Film Festival
It's called If Beale Street Could Talk,
Oh
and
my
it's
God, yeah.
the new Barry Jenkins film. And so I look forward to sharing it with you all.
New Barry Jenkins film, and it's written by James Baldwin, and James Baldwin wrote, I believe, only one finished piece in St. Paul de Vence. I'm going to mispronounce it.
You've got
and it is that piece
amazing.
that he's going to visit. So it's sort of all coming right home this moment.
We don't have very much time, but I know directing is dear to your heart,
Yeah.
and you have a new project coming up.
Which one?
The one for AMC.
Oh, the one for AMC.
That's what we're here
yes,
for.
exactly.
Okay?
That one. I'm like, which one?
By the way, can I just tell you something? So I said to Colman, I just saw him the other day, I said, so Colman, how's the Nat King Cole project going? And he looked at me blankly, and I thought, did I get it wrong? Did I blow the play? Right? And so he's got the Donner Summer thing up in New York, and he's doing Nat King Cole, and I thought, oh, faux pas, I blew it. It's not his play. And then he said, oh yeah, I'm just not so far ahead that I can think about a play that's opening in Los Angeles in 4 months.
In 4 months.
Because it's too far, whatever the heck it
Right,
is.
exactly. You know, I mean, being a creative artist, sometimes I have to compartmentalize. So I'm just like, I'm right now, I'm at Mipcom. That's all I'm doing, so I have no idea what's next. But I have a piece that I've been writing and working on and developing with AMC called West Philly Baby. And it's based on my play Dot that Josh saw at the Vineyard Theater a few years ago. And it's a matriarch in the center of it has Alzheimer's. It's a dark comedy, though. It's not that very special series about Alzheimer's. It's about how sort of the matriarch, her filter is gone. And now that her filter is gone and you find out some secrets of the family, does it upend a family or does it bring you closer together? And then it re-examines what family is. Hopefully over many, many seasons. So I'm developing that right now, literally. The moment I get back, I have a meeting with a couple of executives, and we're still mining the pilot because we really wanted to, I love the fact that, your wonderful executives, they're like dogs on a bone. We want to make sure we get every note right. Are we creating the right spine to take us forward to develop for seasons? Is this the right way in to the characters, that we're going to follow them and stay on their journey, although their journey may change? So that's what we're doing right now, and I'm having the time of my life doing that, because it's like doing math problems for me. That's what writing is for me. It's like math. It's like I want to figure out a problem, and usually there's a problem in the center, and usually your characters, your protagonists are attached to a really bad idea, and they're just trying to really, and your job is to say, okay, to put them in a universe where they have to change. So basically, I think that's the nature of a lot of stories, and that's what I'm doing. And like we were saying, I write musicals. I have one on Broadway about Donna Summer, and I have another one about Nat King Cole that'll be in Los Angeles at the Gavin Playhouse. So I'm just writing and creating in ways where I think I'm just trying to make a difference, whether it means television, film, or theater.
How fabulous. I wish we had more time, but our time is up. Thank you so much. Join me in thanking them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.